So I'm hyperventilating a little bit. If I fall over, pick me up because I've got some things to say.
Though we adore men individually, we agree that as a group they're rather stupid.
That men are essential for procreation, but when it comes to pleasure, unnecessary.
Dinosaurs eat man. Woman inherits the earth.
Safety lights are for dudes.
Safety lights are for dudes.
Well, put some skates on. Be your own hero.
Hands in the air, Kristen.
Lord.
Please give it up for the dazzling vocal stylings of Miss Kimberly.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 79 of Citizen Dame, our special Memorial Day episode. It's not special, it's just an average episode that we just figured we were going to record on Memorial Day weekend. Because we're not cool. Did we didn't have plans. None of us had plans this week, right?
Just hanging out.
What are plans?
What are these things called plans? As always, I'm Kristen Lopez here with the fantabulous Karen Peterson.
Hello.
And the loud and audacious Lauren Humphries Brooks. I say loud with love, of course.
I like that description of me. Hello.
I'm trying to think of new jazzy adjectives for all of us.
Loud and audacious. I like
Yes. Okay, I'm going to try to come up with a whole list of synonyms for everybody by the next episode. Hopefully get me through the next couple of months. But we have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's just dive right into the world of garbage men. This month, or this week, felt like there was a lot happening in a very short amount of time that seemed incredibly complex. So we're going to try to hit everything and give it the respect it deserves.
It kind of felt like the old days of this podcast, when those first few weeks were hitting hard and fast with all these garbage people, and then we've had a long time where things have kind of settled down, and we've had stuff to talk about, but it's been a long time since we've had a lot of big news of this nature, so... yeah.
Gather round, children. We're going to talk about the bad old days when internet required you to be on the phone and every man was probably a predator.
So true.
Those few months ago.
Exactly. The dark days of October 2018. Let's start with the story that just literally came and went over the last couple of days. So
someone overshadowed
Mitchell, yeah, other things overshadowed. Exactly, but I still think, we can talk about whether there's a difference because of different factors. I think there might be. So Jason Mitchell who's the star of the film Straight Outta Compton. He's on The Chi. He's on a bunch of other shows. He has a Netflix film. Mudbound, that's the other one I couldn't think of. He has a Netflix film called Desperados coming out. Well, supposedly it came very fast and furious that he had been written out of his Showtime series. His agent dropped him due to multiple allegations of misconduct. And that was kind of like all we heard until... Have we heard any updates? I haven't even heard anybody retweeting the story or talking about it.
Some people were talking about it the day that it broke, but no, I haven't heard any updates because he kind of got overshadowed by some other higher profile folks being stupid. But yeah, this situation, it's my understanding that there were several complaints of things that he was doing and saying to actresses on the sets of pretty much everything he has worked on. This wasn't like a one-time deal. This was an ongoing problem that people had with him. A couple of actresses have come forth, including Nazim Pedrad, who is currently starring in Aladdin. And yeah, so this is something that had been really under the radar. We hadn't heard about it, but this had been in the works for a little bit, and the fact that his agent dropped him before, that was part of the news story, that there were even allegations against him. It's like, man, this whole thing happened very fast. At least it seemed to.
Yeah, and right now they're saying that it's still unclear what finally led anybody to act against him. So
yeah, the only thing I know for sure is that someone from Lionsgate told The Hollywood Reporter, and this article will be in the show notes, but told The Hollywood Reporter that the producers received, quote, specific information which was investigated immediately and thoroughly and dealt with as quickly as possible.
So I always interpret that as what? Audio, video, text messages? Everybody leaves a paper trail.
Well, I don't know, because depending on who it is, audio, visual, and text messages don't always matter, so...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this guy, he's known, but like I even just had to look him up because when you said Mudbound, I was like, who did he play in Mudbound? And I was like, oh, that guy. Like,
yeah.
That's the thing. He's known, but he's not yet really an A-list actor or someone that is just an immediate household name.
Yeah, he's more of like a star on the rise.
Yeah, and this is obviously arresting that a bit. So, like, even when this came out, I think that was part of the reason why people didn't really talk about it a great deal, was that, you know, it's not a name that you go like, oh yeah, Jason Mitchell, I know that guy. It's not like, you know, if Tom Hanks or something like that got outed as some horrible predator.
Exactly.
But at the same time, for me, it's a little bit odd that, yes, there's the validity of the criticism that he's not an A-list star. We're going to be talking about a lot of A-list people who did stupid things this week. But at the same time, I mean, they moved incredibly quickly to wipe all presence of him from his management team to Netflix. I mean, Netflix has how many allegations of stuff swirling around them, and they don't move on anything unless it's absolutely necessary.
Well, they moved pretty quickly on Spacey. But I think that this is something that, this is just my guess, and I guess we'll have to wait until more of these types of situations come up, but my guess is that this is something that's going to start happening more and more, is that when people are not big household names, and it is easier to kind of just cut them out of everything, this will start to happen. So these people who are not household names yet, I think more and more of them, as stuff comes out, there's just going to be no tolerance. There's not going to be giving them the opportunity to become big stars and causing a lot of potential issues when the garbage starts to come out later. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
The point I was going for, that I've seen a lot of women of color talk about, specifically with this story, is that would they have moved as quickly if it was a white guy? And I think there's validity to that statement.
Yeah, and that was actually my initial reaction, too. The thing is that I don't know if we can know that until there's a similar situation that involves a white guy, and we see how that is dealt with.
But I think we've seen similar situations throughout our discussions, and I think that there's always this cachet of being the white guy who gets a second chance, and I don't know, I think there's a real difference that is being ignored, and I think if Jason Mitchell doesn't ever come back, and yet we're still welcoming back the numerous white guys that we already know are terrible people, that says a lot, and I think that's already been proven.
Well, I'm struggling to think of someone who's an actor at kind of the same level where rising. So white guy, rising star, not a household name yet, but on his way to being one.
Yeah, to me, this would be like if Alden Ehrenreich or somebody, like, it'd be on that.
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
something
that
like
level. Yeah,
and
I can't think of something like that.
The closest I could think of is Chris Hardwick, who also has, and this is undoubtedly about his privilege, but who also has a number of connections, not just, below the line, not just in terms of his bankability, as it were.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you can get away with shit, marry a Hearst, and then you're good. Just
yeah. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of another white actor who has had the same thing happen to him and that has still managed to come back. And maybe there is one, and I'm just like not being able to recall it, but I can't think of one. And so I think I agree with Karen that we have to wait and see as these things, because these things are going to continue to happen. if it does end up splitting down racial lines. And I agree, Kristen. It might, and I wouldn't honestly be surprised if it did.
Right.
But it's difficult. It's difficult for me to say certainly at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the story's still developing. We'll definitely keep an eye on it because I think it's definitely important. And again, it was really swept under the rug in the rush of Cannes news. Cannes, the film festival that's still pissing us off 2 weeks later.
You know, I just have to say that, like, the first couple of days of Cannes, I was really feeling the envy of, like, man, I wish I was there. There's some cool stuff happening this year.
So much FOMO.
And then all of a sudden, I was really glad I wasn't there and thought I probably never want to go to Cannes because it sounds like a shit show.
That is not to say that if the people at Cannes say one day, hey, we want to send those Citizen Dame girls to Cannes, that we would not accept. Just
I
full
would
disclosure.
totally party it up in France.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will accept free tickets.
Yes. I'm not going to wear high heels because, I mean, I'm not. But, you know, we can talk about that. So, Cannes happened again this week, and a lot of other terrible shit went down. Now, we'll get to Tarantino in a second because I feel like we have more to say. But this came out over the last couple of days, and I wrote it on the agenda because I feel it's worth talking about again. So if you don't remember, in 2013, Blue is the Warmest Color came out. Directed by Abdellatif Kechiche. Is it Kechiche or Kechiche? I don't know.
Kechiche?
He's an asshole, regardless. But there was all this discussion about how the young actresses at the center of that film did not like making it because they felt very uncomfortable having to do what were essentially unsimulated sex scenes. And I got told by a bunch of male critics that I was wrong and it was a beautiful movie and how dare I, love is love is love and all that bullshit. So now he has a new movie that's premiering at Cannes that male critics are saying is just a 4.5-hour porn. And it's been revealed that he had to ply his actors with booze in order to get them to do the sex scenes because they did not want to.
Yeah, he got everyone liquored up and then let them have sex and just filmed it and put it in a movie. And this is called art.
So
this is allowed to compete at Cannes.
Let's just, okay, I don't know about you guys, but if you're sitting around your friend's basement and he tries to get you drunk and then says, hey, you guys are so drunk, here's my video camera and I'm going to record you guys having sex, what do we call that? I feel like that's called assault in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I guess if it premieres at Cannes, it's okay.
But
I don't really know. It's French.
You know, there were not enough good female directors to have films in competition at Cannes because, you know, I mean, we don't want to, like, lower the bar.
It would be unfair to women if they allowed them to compete with that dreck.
I mean, you know, I'm certain that there are some female filmmakers that could totally make consensual porn films and submit them to Cannes, and, you know, that would be fine, I guess. I don't know.
Don't get me wrong, there is a whole interesting topic worth discussing about the line between porn and art house, okay? Which we have never really definitively figured out, okay? But my problem here is that this is straight up what Bertolucci did, or the thousands of directors who said, oh, hey, you know what? My actress didn't want to do something, so I just did it without her knowledge, or I berated her until she did it, or now we're just straight up getting people drunk who, I think this is a predominantly young cast as well, and just telling them to fuck each other on camera. Art! And I say this as somebody who, when I saw Blue is the Warmest Color in 2013, I really felt scummy watching it. I felt like I was watching a movie that was essentially like a porn film that was made without anybody's consent. And I got so much shit by predominantly male critics for saying that, well, you know, was it just because it had nothing to do with them being lesbian characters. It's the fact that you can tell the two actresses who later came out and said they were uncomfortable.
Yeah. But dudes are like, no, it's beautiful.
However they want to explain jacking off to an art film. I get it.
Yeah.
You don't want to get a porn at your local Blockbuster, so you want, or whatever, Redbox, so you want to get
download
an
it for
NC-17
free.
rated.
My gosh.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Pornhub exists. Like,
Exactly. No, I'm just assuming it's like some white basic dude film bro, okay, who wants to invite some girl over, and he's like, you know what? I want to get laid. What can I make her watch that's not porn, but I can convincingly tell her it's a movie? Blue is the Warmest Color, this piece of shit. Really, dude. I want to know. I want a man to tell me he got laid because he showed somebody blue is the warmest color. Like, that's what I want.
I'm struggling to think of a girl that would be like, oh yeah, that's totally hot. I want to have sex with a man now. Like,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Like, oh my god.
But I mean, that was so many of the critiques about Blue is the Warmest Color was that it was this totally male gaze perspective on a lesbian relationship. That's part of the thing. It's just like that. Well, okay, you're talking about most of pornography right there.
Right.
So it goes along with another director who apparently doesn't. Karen, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody like take an intake of breath, like they were going to say something. Never
I
mind.
heard that too, but it wasn't me.
It was a ghost. It was the person who loves blue is the warmest color, obviously coming to tell us what's wrong.
It was some ghost about to say, well, actually.
Exactly. Or maybe it was Kim. Maybe she's on here, like, secretly, just, like, always.
Well, actually.
So
totally something Kim would say, by the way.
We miss Kim.
Another director who was at Cannes. You guys, I don't know if you know this, but Tarantino had a movie at Cannes this week.
No!
Hey, remember how that
I
movie's
know.
on your 10 most anticipated list?
It is on my 10 most anticipated. And I still stand by that, because at this point...
You're a brave person.
Exactly. At this point, I feel like I need
one.
to see... I need to see it. I need to see it at this point. I've heard it's a 2.5-hour loving ode to 1969 as only Quentin Tarantino can do it. And I heard there's a 20-minute discussion of Leo and Brad Pitt yelling spaghetti at each other. Art!
Oh, I thought that was a joke.
I honestly, I would not put it past him to actually have it be real.
I wouldn't either, but the way it was written, I'm pretty sure it was a joke, but now I'm not sure.
Exactly. See?
I saw that tweet and I was like, is that real? Or is it making fun of things? I don't know.
That's how it is with Tarantino. You literally don't know if stupid bullshit is real or not. So it came. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood premiered at Cannes. Depending on who you talk to, it is either the best thing ever made or a motherfucking masterpiece. And those are the two extremes. Which you expect with a film festival
Aren't
audience.
those the same thing?
Yes, they are the same thing. That was my crude attempt at humor.
My God.
Either the best thing ever made or a masterpiece.
So regardless, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood premiered, and there was a question asked of Tarantino during the film's press conference by a female journalist about why Sharon Tate had the least amount of lines. And Tarantino responded with 4 words: "I reject your hypothesis." I don't think he knows what hypothesis means, because a hypothesis is a theory that you're testing out and trying to prove whether it's true or not. So he really should have said statement. Sorry, English major coming through here. Like, words have meaning. So he refused to answer the question.
Oscar-winning writer,
Robbie,
by the way.
Exactly. Margot Robbie did answer it in a weird way about how it was her death marks the loss of innocence. So apparently that's why she has less lines than everybody else. And then I retweeted the article, and all I said was a valid question, and I got fucking roasted by weird alt-right assholes for 3 days. And so, yeah.
Serves you right for making a 2-word statement.
I was honestly afraid to comment on your tweet because I didn't want them coming after me.
Oh, and you guys didn't even see the DMs that I got from people that were just like... And I reported several of them, and none of them violated Twitter's terms of privacy.
Of course
at
not.
all. Of course not. Okay. here's my thing, and this has created a firestorm with, like, critics, predominantly men again, saying that, oh, did we just forget all the amazing female characters that Tarantino's made? That doesn't refute the question. Like, I feel like we forgot what the specific question that was asked was, which is, why is Sharon Tate have the least amount of lines?
Yeah, they're talking about this as if it's an attack on all of his films in the past, and she specifically asked, Margot Robbie's super talented, she's been nominated for an Oscar, she's been in all these great movies, why didn't you give her more to do?
Which was a criticism we've all had. Exactly. It's not strange. He damn well should have known that question was gonna be asked.
He did know that question was going to be asked, and he was prepared to be a dick about it. That's the thing. Like, that didn't catch him by surprise at all. If you watch the video, which I have more than once, if you watch it, he's not surprised by the question. He just doesn't want to answer it, and he wants to make a very big point of not answering it. And so he does that in the most obnoxious way that he can, which is to say, simply, I reject your hypothesis, and stop talking. He could have said, well, I disagree with where I think you're going with this, and here's why. Or, I'd really like Margot to talk about this from her perspective. He could have done any of those things, but instead just, I'm not going to answer that.
Well, and the problem is, too, that he's later asked a question about Roman Polanski, which he had an answer for. You know, like, that's my problem, is that he has somebody telling him, these are the questions you should expect, here are the answers. And then he has another question that he just outright refuses. And then it turns into this whole discussion about how, as a director, he is untouchable because he's put women in his films. And as somebody who loves Jackie Brown is an outlier in his oeuvre. I mean, if you really look at it in terms of what he's doing with that film. And that was also 20 years ago. Even something like Kill Bill, where Uma Thurman criticized him, which I love. I got so many people that I'm not actually supposed to be acquaintances with, who said, well, you know, Uma Thurman walked back those comments that she made about him and blamed them all on Weinstein. I was like, that does not negate what he openly did to her. Right. Why is it that he is Teflon, and now it needs to be like looking at his whole filmography and how if he doesn't answer this question, it is therefore an attack on the fact that he's a totally feminist director, which he's not. These are criticisms that have followed him for years.
Well, that was one of the things that sort of drove me crazy about all of this, is that you've got these, like, layers of what is happening. So first you've got the initial question, right? Which was a totally legitimate question that he could have answered and chose not to. Right? And Margot Robbie answered it. Like, we might not like what she has to say, we might not agree with her, but she did try to give a response to it, an honest response, apparently. Also without, like, demeaning the film, which is understandable because it's a movie that she's there promoting. And so you've got that layer, and then the next layer is, you know, it then spiraled into this conversation about Tarantino's films, which is a totally legitimate conversation to have. Like, I think that we should have that conversation, and we're probably going to have it even more once, you know, more human beings actually get to see this movie. But when we began talking about, like, particularly on Twitter, and I even saw this, I even saw this on Facebook and places like that, where people were actually having this conversation. It was the same shit over and over again. It's just like, well, he puts women in his movies. How can you claim that Kill Bill isn't a feminist film? It's just like, well, actually, I think, not only do I think that Kill Bill isn't a feminist film, I think that this has been talked about. Like, one of the major films that everyone was discussing was Death Proof. And there have been feminist analyses of that have come down on multiple sides. And have said, like, yeah, this is a really feminist film. And on the other hand, it's just like, well, no, let's look at the way that he actually treats female characters in his films and the way that he uses revenge and trauma and violence against women and all of that stuff. This is a conversation that has been going on pretty much since, like, 1994. How we're still having the same debate and we're still repeating the same points, and the primarily men, but I also saw a number of women making the same kind of arguments of just like, because he puts women in his films, ergo he's feminist. It's just like, no, that isn't how feminist criticism works. That isn't how feminism in movies work. And you can't simply decide that this dude who has been openly problematic for years and openly controversial for years. You can't just be like, yeah, he's totally a feminist. There's no further conversation. It's lazy. It's bad criticism. It's bad theory. And it's just bullshit. And that I think that one of the people that you're referencing, Kristen, actually wound up blocking me because I finally said one too many things to him that made him mad. But it was the same kind of thing of like, we're going to, because Uma Thurman walked back some of the comments about Tarantino, that somehow negates what he did to her. So there's so many layers to this, and it has gotten flattened to a degree that we can't have the conversation about it. We can't talk about the shit that he does in his movies. We can't talk about the shit that he does in real life, that none of it matters. It's like, why are we so protective of Tarantino? Why are so many people this immediately defensive of this guy? It's a very bizarre phenomenon.
I think a lot of it has to do with Tarantino is still so representative of the early 90s, like, fuck film school mentality.
Yeah.
He didn't go to film school, and therefore every average dude with a blog who is like, I didn't go to film school, and look at Tarantino, we're the same. I feel like they feel that is them. And Tarantino is also this guy that has created this persona of being for film and being for the film lover. And I think that that's a very attractive persona. It's a front. As I've talked about, like, everything that a celebrity shows you is very highly cultivated. But I think people are still very attracted to that.
Yeah, and like you say, I think even that on our Slack, Kim may have mentioned it, that these men see themselves in him, and that these are the kind of movies that I would make. It's just like, yeah, and that might be a problem. Like, maybe you want to consider your attitudes towards women and your attitudes towards Black people just a little bit, because some of these things were not particularly acceptable in the 1990s, and they're sure as fuck not acceptable now. I do find it interesting that this all started from Tarantino rudely declining to answer a question posed by a woman. And I think that that's very indicative also, that this became people got so immediately defensive about it.
Well, that's my other question too, is how would he have handled this question if it was asked by a man?
Yeah. Yeah. And there has to be a gender issue in this. Like that's one of the things that just flummoxes me about some of the response. Is that, and including from guys who are just like, yeah, feminism, yeah, I'm total ally, all of that, and then suddenly they're just like, she was trying to get him. It's like, but I mean, what she asked was pretty straightforward, pretty standard, not terribly controversial, really, question, and your boy didn't respond very well, and yeah, how would he have responded if a man had asked the same question? Would it have been perceived as being about gender? All of that shit. It's how we're still at this point in some of these conversations. It just boggles me, because it shows that a lot of these guys have not been paying attention. They have not been listening, and they really do believe that they are allies when they're not.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the grander context of actually talking about the subject matter too, this is the Manson movie with money behind it. And that's also something that I think is getting lost in this discussion, that Tarantino's selling this as, this tribute to Sharon Tate, and the family is on board with it. And that's a valid question about why she has the least amount of lines. And we've all given our theories about what we think the plot of this movie is going to be and her place within it. And answering that would have been a great time from a PR perspective. I should have been in this, apparently, to direct that narrative to be like, hey, she has the least amount of lines because of this, but at the same time, this is a movie that, try to sell it as something, which is what you've been doing this entire lead up to it, which is that, according to Tarantino, this is some sort of weird-ass tribute. And that would have been at least some way to answer. But even Margot Robbie's answer, where she's talking about how it's the loss of innocence, that feels like such a pre-written statement that I think even Brad Pitt has said something similar to that in promoting this movie, that does not bring up how this movie is supposedly meant to be a positive tribute to Sharon Tate. And,
It comes off again as this silencing of her existence. She's been, the way that it comes off as is that she's been turned into a symbol. That she's not even really a person, per se. She's an image. She's a thing that is symbolic of something else. And using women, and particularly violence against women and female trauma, as symbolic is pretty standard in the Western cinematic canon, and has also been one of the things that has been highlighted by feminist film critics for a long time as being a problem. You can't just use female trauma to drive, to say something big about the nature of the nation or the nature of society or something like that. It's turning this real human being who actually died and was horribly murdered into a thing, an object, which is the way that she was treated in life.
Well, I cannot get past, too, the fact that the original release date for this movie that Tarantino wanted was the 50th anniversary of her murder. And that's never set well with me. Even though Sony fixed that, that's always been a spot of contention for me.
This is a reminder that Charlie Says is out on VOD, I believe, this week. If you have not seen it, you should go see it. It's one of the... I'm assuming it's going to be one of the best Manson movies. I have my thoughts. And it's directed and written by women! Yay! So moving on! This is the one I wanted to talk about the most, but I also didn't want to talk about it all. So, I don't know how this started. So somebody feel free to give background if they have it. If memory serves, Moby wrote a autobiography where he talked about how Natalie Portman at 18 desperately wanted him and how they dated, and he was like, no, young girl, I can't date you, but I will if you're into it. And then Natalie Portman came out and was like, what the fuck are you talking about? We never dated. I thought you were a creep. And he's like, I don't know why you say that we didn't date. And she sent out another statement like, because we didn't date.
And then he posts a picture of himself half naked standing next to her as proof of said relationship. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can bust out my picture with me and Armie Hammer in a hotel room and say that we were totally in a relationship, but that doesn't make it
Karen,
so.
I don't know why he would say that you weren't. Come on.
Clearly we're together.
Me and Oscar Isaac are clearly together. We have a photo of us together.
That's what the picture proves.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to go back to your fictional friend in the basement who hasn't taken a photo with a shirtless man and looked clearly uncomfortable and disinterested and then had him say that you had a relationship. Who hasn't had that? God. But it brought up a lot of questions about the fact that, many questions, starting with the fact that he was dating an 18-year-old.
Oh, wait.
Why is Moby? If I could have lived 30 years never remembering Moby, I would have been very happy. I
literally had forgotten he existed until this week.
Come on, Karen. Who doesn't still rock out to him and Gwen Stefani's rendition of Southside?
Me.
Yeah, I'm sorry if anybody gets that song stuck in their head. It's a terrible song, by the way. So it brought up a lot of questions about the fact that she was 18. He was decidedly not 18. She says they did not date, and that she was, again, if a woman is telling you that she feels uncomfortable, maybe not double down on it. And then posting pictures, and then he acted like she was just being so unreasonable, and he finally said oh, I'm sorry that she felt uncomfortable, I guess.
He's one of those guys that thinks the I'm uncomfortable is just code for you need to try harder.
Yeah, of course, Karen. Don't you know that no means yes? and fuck off means I will. I mean, I guess if you try a little bit harder, I mean, I will.
No
eventually.
means yes. It will be a yes when you ask me enough times, right?
It's so classic in just the weirdest way. You know, this guy being like, oh yeah, we dated, but then I realized that, you know, she was a little too young for me, even though like she's totally in love with me. And then she's literally like, we never dated, dude. Like, we didn't. And he keeps on insisting that she was 20, and she's like, no, I was 18 and I found you creepy. Like, all of that it's just like listening to this all play out and watching it all play out, and then he doubles down. He doubles down to say that yeah, no, we totally did date. I don't know why you're denying it. It's like, maybe because you didn't date. Like, just let it go, please, dear God. I mean, it's kind of quintessential in terms of poor Natalie Portman's career, that she seems to have been pursued by creepy men pretty much ever since she started acting. She started acting. What
happens when your first movie is when you're 13 and you're in what's that dude?
The Professional. Luc
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luc
and
Besson.
am I the only one that's seen the director's cut of that movie?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think I watched it.
It's the American cut is a great film. The director's cut is fucking disgusting. But no, and it brought up this question about how we've sexualized so many young women. Natalie Portman is a prime example. She's almost a weird example in terms of just how sexualized she's been. So you have The Professional. If anybody's seen, it's a movie I know is so problematic, and I enjoy it on a weird level. If anybody's seen Beautiful Girls from like the mid-90s, she's in a very weird relationship with Timothy Hutton in that movie, and it's supposed to be like cutesy.
Is it Timothy Hutton or Matt Dillon?
No, it's Timothy Hutton. Matt Dillon is in the movie as well.
It's been a while. I can't remember who's who in that one.
I'm not going to say that I own it, but I might own it. So trust me, it's Timothy Hutton.
Oh, I believe you. I just was confused because it's been a long time.
There's so many douchebags in that movie too.
Oh, like, Matt Dillon's like with Lauren Holly in that, right?
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. He's Lauren Holly and Mira Sorvino.
He wants to be. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many Miramax players in that movie.
It's so true.
But then in 2016, there was that whole. It wasn't really a scandal, but Natalie Portman got involved in this weird triangle that she didn't even know she was in with the writer Jonathan Safran Foer, who they exchanged emails, and he thought that meant they were gonna leave their respective spouses for each other, and he actually told his wife he was leaving her for Natalie Portman, and Natalie Portman was like, oh wait, what? I'm not leaving my husband, dude. I'm not down for this. It just seems like this poor woman has been so codified as being this unattainable, almost like last Lolita figure, that it's driving men to do the dumbest shit. But then we also saw, like, I remember growing up, the Olsen twins, when they turned 18, the countdown calendars, and they made jokes about that. Emma Watson, and we're seeing it now a little bit with Millie Bobby Brown, and we're seeing these pictures of Natalie Portman clearly being a teenage girl trying to take a picture with a performer that she probably knew, and he's going around saying that they dated. Like, you're a grown-ass man, guy. What the hell is your problem?
Well, and props to Natalie Portman for being remarkably well-adjusted through all of this.
Yes.
Like, she seems to have managed to, like, so many of girls who went through that, like you said, like, people like Lindsay Lohan or Miley Cyrus or Judy Garland. Like,
Shirley Temple. I mean,
Shirley
yeah.
Temple. Yeah, so many of those people, like, had real problems. To greater or lesser degrees, and she seems to have come through pretty well. Like, no, this was weird and creepy, and I didn't like it, and I don't know what's wrong with him. Like, she seems to have had that perspective. But yeah, it does raise those questions about the way that we sexualize people, and not even just young girls, but young women, and
we talked about it with young boys too.
Yeah, and I know that a number of people talked about, Natalie Portman's kind of persona for a very long time as being the manic pixie dream girl, and the way that men approach her. So that, yeah, like you're saying, she was this unattainable thing that it's like they imagined themselves in a relationship with her, and therefore they were. And that's terrifying. That's a really frightening thing. I can't imagine that she's not creeped out by this at some level. Of being like, these men obviously fantasized that they were together.
Right.
So, yeah, it just reminds everybody, the guy trolling the high school is just not cool. It never was cool. And now I love that we're getting guys who are just, like, outing themselves at this point. Being like, oh yeah, I was totally down for 18-year-old Natalie Portman. Like, no, dude. Again, if you are... I'm speaking to all the men that I'm assuming listen to our podcast. If you're a man trying to get laid, and you're trying to tell a woman that, Natalie Portman at 18 was hot, I want to know if that's been successful for you. I'm just curious. I think we've emptied the garbage for this week. Oh, moving on to questions. So we had a lot of questions this week, which is actually really cool. So we're going to start with one from Merlin at Scripted Merlin, who asks, which Tarantino movie should have been directed by a woman, and why would it be better?
All of them, and I think the answer is obvious. Oh, wait.
I actually had a very specific answer for this one, because it's a transition that always bothered me about his movies, but Kill Bill 2 specifically, I think would be interesting to have seen from a female director, or at least a female screenwriter. Like, my issue with Kill Bill, outside of the obvious, was always that Uma Thurman's character goes from being this, like, badass samurai sword-wielding lady, but then you find out it's because she lost her baby, but then you find out that the baby is also alive. So then the second movie becomes this weird-ass domestic drama between her and David Carradine. Talk about an age difference there. I really would have been interested in seeing a female director talk about, like, how do you be this badass and have a child that you've never connected to? Like, I feel there's a lot of deeper subtext than just Uma Thurman kills people. She does that thing, the 5-point exploding heart thingy that she does. Like, I think there would have been way more discussion about, like, what it means to have had all these bodies racked up on your watch, but then you also have to be a mom. It's like Kill Bill started out maybe alluding to that a little bit in the first fight in the first movie, but then it just did nothing with it. So yeah, I think a female director, or at least a female screenwriter, would have been really interesting to actually explore those questions that Tarantino doesn't even think to ask.
I was trying to think about... Yeah, I mean, I think that like Karen said, all of them actually would have been interesting with a female director. But I go back to Death Proof, which is actually one of my favorite Tarantino films.
I do like that movie as much as problematic as it is.
As problematic, but that's the thing. When I first saw it, I was like, yes, oh god, I love this movie. Like, I love this. And, the second half of the film is just spectacular. But the more that I've looked at it and gone back to it and been like, yeah, there are serious issues. And that's why I think that plot and that concept, done by a female director and a female screenwriter, I mean, I think that would be the assumption, would be the same but different enough to actually take some of those problematic aspects and either get rid of them or interrogate them. And I've always really liked it when women have taken on exploitation genre and played with that and found ways to make exploitation more feminist and approach those kinds of revenge narratives in a different way. And I like that. So I think that Death Proof would have been a really interesting one.
Karen, you want to throw out one or just stick with all of them?
I mean, I'm going to stick with all of them, but I just don't. It took me a long time to finally get to where I felt comfortable admitting it, but I really just don't like Tarantino as a director. But I will say, Kristen, that I think that your points specifically about Kill Bill 2, I haven't seen Death Proof, so I avoided that one, but I think your points specifically about Kill Bill 2 are very apt, and I completely agree with you.
Woohoo! So moving on to another question. We actually got this. This wasn't on the agenda, and I didn't want to forget it. This came from Mason Per Year at Unstoppable Rant. He asks, what musician do you think the next musical biopic should be about? Because if you don't know, we're getting another one next week with Elton John and Rocket Man. So I have a serious answer and an answer that I would just love to see happen in my lifetime. So I keep saying that they need to make and I think Australian television did this, so do not send me like it already exists. I'm talking big screen, okay? I dream of a day when we get a Michael Hutchins In Excess story, preferably one with a Hemsworth and leather pants. I know they don't look the same. I don't care. But that's my dream. That's a serious one. And then my fantasy one that I want to see, I want like a big, gaudy musical biopic on Britney Spears. I want all the songs. I want the Justin Britney breakup. Like, I want all of that. Okay, we'll never get it, but I want it to exist so bad that if I just wish it into existence, like maybe it'll happen. Maybe. I don't know. Karen, Lauren, do you guys got an answer?
I wasn't prepared for this question because I didn't see it, but
yeah.
Let me just think for a moment.
I'm struggling to think of one because. Probably... Go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was struggling to think of one because most of the bands and musicians that I love, I do not want to see them rendered in a musical biopic. Like, I mean, my first response was like, oh, the Beatles, but that's kind of been done, and also I just don't want to see it. There are some things that I just don't want to deal with, like, in any form. Yeah. I'm trying to think, man. Keith Moon would be interesting. It would be insane.
That would be good, yeah.
It would be insane. But again, you know, I think one of the problems that I always have with this stuff is that you've got some of these musicians that are truly one of a kind. And I mean, that was one of the issues with Bohemian Rhapsody beyond everything else, was that Freddie Mercury and his persona and his voice was just so unique that it's hard to you know, see that depicted on screen. And have it be, I mean, even after watching Bohemian Rhapsody, I went and watched the Queen's Live Aid concert, and I was like, there's no fucking comparison, man. Like, you just can't. Like, there's no way that you can watch Rami Malek and then watch Freddie Mercury and be like, oh yeah, Rami Malek was great. Yeah, but Keith Moon, I think, is the only one I got.
Yeah, I mean, this question is hard for me because, yeah, I think of some, it's like, some of the bigger bands, yeah, like the Beatles, it's been done. The Beach Boys kind of have been done. You know, the Rolling Stones, who wants to watch 2 hours of a bunch of guys just getting high a lot, you know? Like, that's just not, it's not fun to me. But then I think of other
Almost
things,
Famous
like,
also touched on all of that.
True, very true. And did it really well. But then I think about more of the stories of, like, what could have been. Like, one of the ones that popped in my head, and I'm so sorry that I cannot think of the name of the actual band, but the band in the movie Detroit, that they're on their way to like their big first gig, or they've just finished it or whatever, and they're like kind of on the way up, and then this terrible incident happens that kind of derails their plans, and like what happened to those guys. I would be more interested in stories like that of these bands that were just on the verge and then something really big went wrong.
I will say that I'm surprised they've never adapted the book, but I would love for them to do it. If anybody's read Pamela Desbar's series on groupies, Let's Spend the Night Together, that would be... I'm surprised nobody's adapted that. That would be really awesome, and I dream of all of that. Again, I have a lot of weird specific questions. As long as nobody ever makes a Tiny Tim biopic, I will be completely happy. Yeah, did you miss my Twitter rant about my irrational fear that I have of Tiny Tim? It's a big deal in my house. I know, it's not even funny. Man fucking terrifies me. Okay.
I mean, it is kind of funny.
It's very frightening. No, literally, you want to watch me like physically leave a room? My brothers do this at least a couple times a year. They play that fucking song and I will leave. I will literally leave because I can't handle it. 5-year-old fear. I don't know why. It's just not a thing that is ever. Nope, fuck that.
Some people are afraid of snakes, some people spiders, some people Tiny Tim.
Yeah, literally, I tell people my 3 things that I fear the most are grasshoppers, death, and Tiny Tim. I'm not even kidding. These are secrets, y'all, that I am bearing on air. So, moving on to our last question. This comes from Keith at KH Derek. What are your favorite movie snacks?
Popcorn.
I like M&Ms. I eat M&Ms a lot, or Bunch of Crunch, or the cookie dough bites, but they gotta be frozen.
My mom and I like to get peanut M&Ms and put them in our popcorn, or that also works with hot tamales too.
Oh, you're one of those people.
Yeah.
I never got the concept of mixing candy with popcorn.
Oh, I love the sweet with the salty. It's so good.
Yeah. I always liked snow caps and popcorn.
Oh yeah.
Snow caps.
I've never had a snow cap in my life. Am I missing out on something?
I mean, they're basically chocolate chips with like little sprinkles on them. So I mean, that's essentially what they are. But they're really good.
They are.
I will have to put that on my list of things to consume at some point in my life. So we did get a trailer this week that I did want to talk about. We got the first trailer for Terminator Dark Fate. This is the next installment of the Terminator series. This is both a reboot-ish and a sequel. I've heard that it's
basically a sequel to T2.
Yeah, that it's retconning and ignoring everything that happened after 2.
Yes.
Which is fine with me. But it's directed by Tim Miller, who did Deadpool.
He forwent Deadpool 2 in order to do this movie instead.
Yes. So the trailer for this I've told this story before, so I won't belabor it again. But I vowed that I will never be excited for another Terminator movie after Salvation broke my heart and ripped it out of my chest. So I saw the trailer for this, and I was like, okay, not gonna get excited. And then Linda Hamilton comes out with that big fucking gun, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm so excited. I love Linda Hamilton.
So sorry, Kristen. I'm so sorry. You're gonna be disappointed.
I know I'm gonna be disappointed. I know, but see, here's the thing: the Terminator franchise, next to my fear of Tiny Tim, my Terminator love started young. Okay, my parents didn't really care what I watched. So I watched Terminator at a very young age, and Sarah Connor was kind of like my hero. And I love Linda Hamilton and everything she's ever done, and I think it's a travesty that we do not have her in everything. So I don't want to be excited about this, but I feel like a key reason why all of the sequels sucked is because she's not in them. If it was just James Cameron writing Sarah Connor, then any person could have played that character. But they can't, because you need Linda Hamilton. She is Sarah Connor, and Sarah Connor is her. I don't want it to suck. Please don't suck.
I mean, I think the big selling point of this film is Linda Hamilton. I don't think that there is any others. So it'll be interesting. Badass grandma, like, cool. I still don't know what the plot is.
Yeah, I don't know what the plot is. I just know that as long as it's her, I don't even care about Arnold. Like, I don't give a shit. You don't need him in this movie. All you need is her being a full-on badass. Simple.
Okay.
All right.
Karen, what? I feel like you want to say something, but you're holding back.
I honestly don't. I'm not excited for this movie. I wish that these movies would just stop. I'm getting bored of the nostalgia thing. I really am, of tapping into stuff, from 20, 30, 40 years ago to just find something else. There are so many other stories to tell.
I mean, that is one of the weird things about the Terminator franchise, is that the last film that got any degree of critical acclaim, and I don't know how the other ones did at the box office, but the last one that really got any attention was T2.
Which was in, like 1992?
91.
Yeah. I wanted to say like 89. I was just like, I know that I was very young, like, and the fact that this franchise is still going on just it's weird. It's very strange. but
they keep trying to bring it back. That's the thing. This isn't a franchise that's been ongoing. It's not like, I mean, Star Trek started in the 60s and they'll bring out new things all the time, and it's, you know, some of them work better than others, but it's something that will always continue to be popular. With Terminator, that's not the case. It had a really great first movie. It had a really great sequel, which, you know, I would say is actually better than the first movie. But then after that, it's like they'll go a few years, and they'll try to do something. It does okay-ish, and then it'll go away again for a while, and then they try to bring it back, and they've never been able to go back and capture what the first two did, and yet they keep trying, and that's what I'm just tired of.
I'm not saying anything. I am so afraid of being disappointed again that I'm just gonna say my silent prayers and hope that it's not Genesis. It doesn't have Jai Courtney in it, so I mean, already it's got to be better. Sorry, Kim. So that comes out November 1st. Yay! I don't know.
Good, it comes out before AFI, so I won't have to deal with all the people speculating that it's going to be the secret screening.
You won't have to deal with me. Well, actually, no. It would be hilarious to actually witness me watching this, because after the last time, watching a Terminator movie with me is kind of a hot ticket item in my house. So, moving on to reviews. So not a whole lot came out this weekend, but we want to do our part to discuss Booksmart, the new directorial debut from Olivia Wilde that did not make a ton of money, and there's a whole separate discussion. Maybe we'll talk about that for a second, but it didn't crack the top 5? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
So,
I think it's number 7.
Here's my thing.
6.
There's been a lot of discussion about why did it go wide. Annapurna dropped the ball on promotion. Then you have other female directors who were kind of grousing about how they didn't get the same promotion as Booksmart and how they want it. And then there's the other discussion about how really they did make a decent amount of money. It's just Hollywood's new expectations of how much people need to make with their movies needs to change. I mean, it's upsetting that this movie is not number 1 at the box office, but it's also going up against a big Disney remake. Did we really expect it to?
No, I didn't expect it to beat Aladdin. However, here's something that I think, because people are saying, oh, well, you know, it's missing out to movies like Avengers and stuff. Something that I looked at, because I think the easiest film, it's not a straight, direct, fair comparison, but I think the easiest film to compare this to is Superbad, which opened in August with $33 million. That's not adjusted. That's 2007 or whatever dollars, $33 million. And it was in theaters at the same time as Bourne Ultimatum, Rush Hour 3. So it was also going up against studio movies that had only been out for a week or two. So I don't know what the deal is with Booksmart.
I mean, I'm not a box office pundit. Like, I will say that right now. One of the things that I said earlier today on Twitter about this was partially about the comparison with something like Aladdin, which is always going to beat an R-rated teen comedy. It is. Like, there's no question about that. One of the other things, and I think that this is where, so you mentioned Superbad and the films that it went up against, and those are, some of those are what? So you got Rush Hour 3, which is a franchise film. What was the other one? You mentioned another big one. Bourne Ultimatum.
Bourne Ultimatum, yeah.
Bourne Ultimatum, yeah. I do think that the demographics have changed, the box office demographics have changed, and one of the things you've got with something like Aladdin or something like Avengers Endgame is you've had these big franchises that have been dominating theaters in a way that they didn't really in 2007. So none of those other films that Superbad went against were the same level, I guess, as something like Avengers or even as something like Aladdin, and I think that we have to make allowances for that. True. On the one hand. The other thing is that it is Memorial Day weekend, As I've said, if you're talking about a family of 4 going to the movies at, so if you're figuring an average, like an average ticket of $10 a piece, that's, $40. You're not going to go see Booksmart. You're going to go see Aladdin. You're going to go see Avengers. You're going to go see one of the ones that is going to keep the kids entertained.
Yeah.
And this movie is not going to keep a 10-year-old boy interested, particularly. It might, some 10-year-old boys maybe. But that's just not going to be the place that you're immediately going to go to. So I do think that some of the demographics have changed. I think that some of the sociology has changed. I think that things like streaming and VOD have altered the way that we look at these kinds of films. And there is that tendency to be like, Booksmart is something that you can put off, right? I don't need to see it in a theater. I can get it when it comes out on Amazon or when it comes out on Netflix or wherever else. And so I think that there has been a cultural shift just in the way that people go to the movies and the way that people consume films, and also what films are available and when they're available. Even in talking with my parents about this film, they hadn't heard of it. And I was like, well, but it's been everywhere. It's been in trailers. I've seen advertisements. Like, I live in New York City. My parents live in upstate New York in the middle of nowhere. So there's a conflict there that's going on. So I don't know if any of that completely explains why one film is doing well and why one film did really well and Booksmart didn't do as well. But I think that at least some of those factors have fed into it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And the thing is, too, that, now we have 2 years in a row where the big Memorial Day movie, which happened to be from Disney, made over $100 million, but it was a long time that didn't happen. Like, Memorial Day weekend has not been the big box office weekend that people assume it's going to be.
Well, and that brings us to talking about the movie itself. Karen, you and I saw it at South by. I don't get to go see it again until Tuesday. So I'm excited.
I saw it again on Thursday night.
So jealous. And Lauren, you saw it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all agree that we love it.
Yes.
It's currently my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah.
I want to see it again before I make that statement. It's funny. There was a female critic who shall remain nameless who said, do we like Booksmart because it's good, because we feel like we have to, because it's a female director, and then proceeded to say all the things she didn't like about it. That's a really basic statement to make at this point. But Booksmart does not conform to that. I wish, and I know a lot of other women have said this, I wish this movie existed when I was growing up, because I feel like Olivia Wilde and the amazing screenwriters really capture the fear of being a kind of an introvert in high school. I think it's easy to look at films about high school in general, and especially about men. We talk about Superbad. There's still this cachet of cool. You either get movies about the cool person, a la Ferris Bueller, or the wallflower. And here, I love that it's 2 girls who worked really hard and believe that they should be entitled to, lording that over people. And at the same time, everybody around them was also very smart. They just never really took a chance to get to know those people. And it really looks at the dynamics of high school in a very unique way. And as a teenage girl who was very, very much like Beanie Feldstein in high school, like, I really felt that something was finally being said about that experience.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Watching this, there were moments that, like, I really just wanted to bust out my phone and text some of my friends and be like, guys, this was us, oh my god. And it's true, but I think that there is that sense of, like, I like the fact that they kind of realize, they're like, we didn't, it's not so much that they missed something, they didn't, like you say, they didn't get to know these people that actually turn out to be very interesting, quirky, bizarre, unexpected people. And I liked the fact that this film kind of took many of the tropes that we expect from high school movies and made them real human beings, made them like, yeah, the weird stoner guy who's been held back 3 grades but also is a brilliant coder, the apparent idiot jock who knows things about Harry Potter, that kind of thing. And I liked that because it develops them as people and into being like, because in high school there's that sense that we are all tropes, right? You're the nerd, the jock, the weird kid, the theater kid, but you're also a full person and a real person, and you're trying on different personalities and all of that. And I liked that the film actually addressed that in a really nuanced and just very, very funny way. I mean, there is not a bad actor in this group. Yeah. They were all hilarious.
They are. That's actually, I just wanted to jump in. Sorry to cut you off, Lauren, but I just wanted to jump in specifically on what you're saying, because this is, I think, one of the things that makes Booksmart so special and sets it apart from some other films that it's easy to compare to, like Superbad, where even these characters that are not the main characters, they're these side characters that just kind of come and go throughout the story, even though we don't get to know a lot about them, you get the sense that every one of them has been developed as an actual character. And like, even though we don't get to know what their majors are going to be necessarily or what their family lives are like, you get a sense that all the actors have taken the time to figure that out. And that these are, to them, these are real people. And I think that really makes it a very rich, well-developed, well-defined world.
Yeah, you get the sense of that you're actually just sort of dropping down into the middle of something. And that these kids have had lives before the film began, and they're going to have lives after the film began. And what we're getting is just a little portion of that. And a formative portion, especially for the 2 main characters, that this kind of changes the way that they look at the world and helps them to begin growing up, because that's part of what that's the other part of what the film is about being like, okay, we're leaving high school, we're kind of, that sort of desire when you're going off to college of like, we're going to leave some of this stuff behind us, but also what have we understood from this experience? What have we learned here today? And I liked that it was actually like, yeah, these kids are moving towards being college kids and being adults and making their own stupid mistakes and having their first experiences with drugs and with booze and with sex and all that. And it's weird and uncomfortable and bizarre and not always fun, but sometimes a lot of fun. And you've got all of that kind of pushed together into this film. And they are going to go on and have very different lives, and that's okay.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest things about this movie, it really does look at how we see others, and in the context, like mixing that in the context of how we think others see us. And this is a film that really gets into that idea of judging and why you shouldn't just judge the people around you, especially when you don't know that much. These girls, Molly and Amy, Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever, who are fantastic. Great performances from both of them. Their chemistry is just unbelievably good. But there are these 2 girls who know that the rest of the school is judging them, but they're also judging everybody else too. And I think, Lauren, you made a really good point too on was it on the Slack where you were talking about how none of these kids are villains. There's not a villain in this movie. It's just a bunch of people trying to figure their shit out, and that's exactly right. And I mean, I think you see that from the very beginning. When we first meet Molly, we meet her in the context of like the way that she's first introduced. It's like, man, I know I'm supposed to care about her, and she's one of the protagonists of this story, but she'd be someone that would be hard for me to take too. I mean, she is very demanding. It's the last day of school. It's California. It's Los Angeles. It's the last day of school. She's wearing a turtleneck and trying to make plans for next year when she's not even gonna be there. It's like, yeah, that's a kid that would be kind of annoying. And they don't shy away from that. And I really love that, because when you get to see her through this journey of this one night, everything that comes, you really care about her, and you get to see her really experience change, and I think it's brilliantly done.
And Billy Lord is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Billy Lord. I swear to God, I knew that chick in high school, and I really like want to find that person again and be like, dude, I understand now. But
I should seriously send you guys a picture, because the way she looks in this movie, she looks so much like my cousin did in high school that it like weirded me out. It's like, it's Christy. That's my cousin Christy.
And I will say that I love that for another year we get female sung renditions of Unchained Melody between this and Bad Times at the El Royale. I love it. So yeah, go see Booksmart. It's
I also just
amazing.
want to say I love the way that the girls in particular talk to each other. One of my favorite like running gags throughout the entire film is whenever they see each other in new clothes, the compliments, and I just love that. Just like you are, my breath literally gone. Like all of that stuff. I loved that, and I loved the development of their friendship, and the fact that there are fights and disagreements, and there are things they don't like about each other, but that they are such good friends, and that they obviously adore each other. They really do talk to one another the way that girls talk to each other, and I liked seeing that again on screen.
Someone the other day was trying to tell me that, like, oh, well, that fight they have is so ridiculous because how do they just get over it that fast? I'm like, okay, if you don't think that's realistic, then clearly you were never a teenage girl with a best friend, because that is so realistic to just have this crazy fight. And then when Molly realizes what was really going on, then it's like, yeah, it all makes perfect sense. And it's like, they love each other. They love each other so much that they're able to understand where the lines are, and I think it's just such a beautiful display.
And I do want to give them a shout out for having a hilarious discussion about female masturbation. It's a topic that is not explored in cinema with women enough for me, and I was just laughing so much at the whole thing. And that and the way that scene is filmed too, with like the close-ups on everybody's face, it's beautifully filmed. There are so many beautiful shots in this movie.
Well, that's something else that I wanted to.
Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say the shots, the camera work. That's something else I wanted to mention. And for anybody who's listened to me talk about this on any of the 4 other podcasts I've talked about it on this weekend, I'm sorry, but I really love the way that the way that gaze is handled. And like when people are introduced, like when you first meet this girl that Amy has this crush on, it's not that lingering shot going down her body like so many of these teen comedies that are about boys do, or even just any movie about guys looking at like the girl that they're lusting after. It's showing this girl in the process of what she does, what her activity is, and it does that throughout the movie. Whenever you're meeting someone who is like supposed to be someone of interest, the way that they're introduced is active in whatever their interests are, whatever activity they're doing right at that moment. It's not just about objectifying them.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we were talking about Blue is the Warmest Color earlier.
I was going to say, yeah, very different discussion.
And talking about the attempted sex scene, that, like, even just watching that, and it's actually, they go pretty far with that scene. Like, they spend a lot of time there. And again, I liked it that it was very female. There was not any kind of puerile interest in these two girls kind of fumbling with each other, basically. It was actually like you're saying, there's none of that lingering shots on bodies or anything else. And you're also dealing with teenage girls, so there's that. But it felt like, yeah, this makes sense. This is the way that you are when you're a teenager. Just like, I am confused and afraid, and like I don't know entirely what to do, but I'm trying to figure it out. And it works so well, and it comes off as being this actually a very sweet scene for the most part until the end, and then you're like, oh god, this poor girl. But that was the other thing. Nothing that happens in the film is traumatizing. Like, it isn't. One of the things that I kept on coming back to, and it's a very different kind of film from 8th grade, but the way that things were filmed and the way that these kids talk to each other, there was never that lingering sense of like someone is going to get hurt, someone is going to get assaulted, someone is going, like something really bad is going to happen. It's like, no, this isn't about, you know, going through trauma as a teenager. It's about, you know, it's about having fun as a teenager, and it's also about just all of the kind of day-to-day weird shit that goes down sometimes. And I liked that. I liked the fact that this was generally a very happy, positive, joyful film.
Yes.
I do love, too, I'm just going to throw out things that I love, that I wanted to go to their murder mystery party. I really wanted to hang out with that kid who, one of my favorite lines is him just singing "You Ought to Know" and adding in the guy he's dating's name. It's amazing. And it's got a script co-written by the woman who wrote The Spy Who Dumped Me. So, more movies I love. They're all just interconnected. Yay! Any other final thoughts? Go see Booksmart.
Go see it.
Go see it, yeah.
Yay.
Billy Lord is the best.
Billy Lord is Lord. Literally. So that's going to close out this episode. There are numerous ways to listen. We are on Stitcher Radio. We're on Podbean. We're all over the place. We are officially now on SoundCloud as well as Spotify. If you're listening on iTunes, consider helping us out and leaving us a rating and a review. You can follow us on all the medias. We are on Twitter at Citizen Dame Pod, Instagram at Citizen Dame Pod, and Facebook at facebook.com/Citizen Dame. If you're old school and you want to email us, you can do that at citizendamepod@gmail.com. And our website where we do movie reviews, our regular top fives, all of that is citizendamepod.com. If you want to get some more bang for your buck, you can also have some options there. We have merchandise at our Zazzle store, which is zazzle.com/citizendame. And if you want to kick us a couple dollars, you can do that at our Ko-Fi account, ko-fi.com/citizendame. But if you want to get the most stuff for your dollar, that's over at Patreon, patreon.com/citizendame. You get access to all of these episodes as well as all of our bonus content 48 hours early. You get access to pins and other exclusive merchandise. If you want, I actually put up a flashy new page on citizendamepod.com where you can list 5 reasons why you should become a patron, and it lays out all the awesome things that your dollar does for us. So head on over to that. We're going to be prepping to record our Man from U.N.C.L.E. episode coming soon. I'm so excited for Karen to see it. She's never seen it. I'm hoping she likes it.
What do you think, honestly, is going to happen with that?
I think you're going to dislike it, in all honesty. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know Guy Ritchie, but Guy Ritchie did make, Sherlock. You like that.
Yeah, but also, I don't like Henry Cavill.
Are you not, literally, do you have a gnome down there? How do you not like Henry Cavill? That's unfeminine to say, I think.
I find him very boring.
I mean, granted, he's the more boring character in that movie. I'm not a big fan of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but I actually like Armie Hammer in it, so, who
doesn't?
Can go for that. Yeah.
I know, it's official. I think Karen is a Barbie doll. She's got smooth bits down there. There's, no definition.
I'm on a drug trip. I should stop eating strawberries from Billy Lord.
I'm top heavy. This is not possible. What are these proportions?
I do like that the one, I forget, was it Kayla Dever or Beanie Feldstein that's like, oh, I could get with this. Like, this is awesome.
That was Caitlin Dever, yeah.
Yeah, she's just like, yeah.
Yeah. Again, go see Booksmart. It'll all make sense. So yeah, what does everybody have on tap for this week? I think I have Godzilla.
I'm seeing Ma.
Oh, that's right. I am seeing Ma.
Oh, cool. Maybe I'll see you there. And I'm going to some event with Adam Sandler.
I'm sorry.
I like Adam Sandler.
You like Adam Sandler, but you don't like Henry Cavill. This does not make sense.
I don't like Adam Sandler that way.
I don't know, Karen. Up is down.
I find him hilarious.
right is wrong. Adam Sandler is apparently Karen's favorite person now. I don't know.
What?
So I'm gonna close this before we say something that's gonna get us in trouble. Until next time, everybody.
Karen loves Adam Sandler. Like, let's just...
Stop recording.
Yeah.
Mark thy calendars and make thy plans to attend the drama department's summer program, Shakespeare in the Park. King Lot.
We will be performing the Bart's comedies as modern tragedies outside Whole Foods across town.
It's actually funny. It's what we did in my summer program last year in Barcelona, when I lived in Barcelona. I will be directing, and Alan may be starring pending auditions.
I don't audition. I'm offer only.
This looks fun, but I'm not gonna be here.
Yeah, Amy's spending the summer in Botswana helping women make their own tampons.
Gross.
Well, blood attracts lions. I'm saving lives.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually noble. I, too, have a fear of big cats.
And I can't because I'm working all summer and also I don't want to.
You are a Philistine.
Why would you do theater when you could do debate?
Because some of us enjoy working with others.
And some of us know how to win.
Nobody's winning in that outfit.